It's really a pleasure to be here in the company of Aravi, David, Jim, Sean. For me personally, Jim, the work that you've done, Peter Ward and others, is something that is a household topic with my son, and it's really a pleasure to be here. And from the perspective of our union, let me first say who we are, because maybe not all of you are familiar with 32BJ. We represent 125,000 property service workers, porters, cleaners, security officers, apartment workers, supers, resident managers, and they work in all of our various physical spaces, from stadiums to homes, to government buildings, to commercial office buildings like this one. And our membership is part of the SEIU that represents 2.2 million workers in the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. From the perspective of SEIU and 32BJ in particular, we always feel that it's important as we come into the discussion of the role of labor within the efforts to address global warming and the impact of climate change, to battle the distinction that is usually used within the scientific and environmental community of distinguishing between mitigation efforts and adaptation. And I think that adaptation is very much what is in the mind of folks these days after the impact of Sandy. And we have to make sure that in the effort to adapt to extreme weather and what increasingly appear to be the consequences of climate change, and Jim made a very clear presentation as to how this is not fiction but reality, we also have to make sure that we do not forget about the need to really engage in a robust, politically decisive way on mitigation. Because if we already are in the threshold of a dangerous zone of global warming gas presence in the atmosphere, and we intend economically and politically to put even more out there, the issue of mitigation has to be redeveloped and reassessed. And from that perspective, the distinction again I think is very helpful. When we talk about mitigation, we're talking about, on the one hand, traditional way, our green economy, the saving of energy. The saving of energy, is presumed too often in a dangerous way that it leads necessarily to, less reliance on fossil fuels and eventual gas emissions. And that is the chain that we have to sort of lubricate and put back on the bike, because we need to have a strong green economy that helps save on energy costs, creates jobs, allows for a more efficient economy, and then those savings, on the other hand, should not be a reason to, or could easily exist with increasing reliance and dependence on fossil fuels. So I would say that from the mitigation point of view, we need to continue the direction of building a green economy. It's important to create new jobs, to embrace that whole economy around energy savings, but then we also need to create the kind of economic incentives, and I'm very intrigued by some of Jim's ideas, which will be interesting, Jim, to discuss, but sometimes I get a little worried when the market base is the mechanism of decision making, because I know that in the labor market, the marketplace doesn't really work in valuing labor and establishing standards. But we certainly need to make transparent the economic and social costs of relying on fossil fuels, because it's really preventing our economy to do the shift that cannot happen if we leave it just to the marketplace, to away from those kind of energy sources to more renewable sources like solar energy and others. And our country needs a new industry, a new sector that can lead to a new moment of economic development and growth, and we have to, in a deliberate way, it's not going to happen any other way, push for the green economy to be that sector. On the side of adaptation, the debate obviously is that the effect of climate change is already here, and we need to look for ways to protect, jobs, protect property, protect cities. New York City, most of our members, Philadelphia, Baltimore, are in areas that are close or near or at coastal zones. Many of the working members that we represent live in the proximity of those areas, so we take it very personal, the need to invest on adaptation and making sure that the very glimpse of economic disaster in the billions of dollars that we experience with Sandy doesn't get replicated year after year, and then entire communities are devastated, entire economies are affected. So adaptation is very important, but no measure of adaptation is going to be in the long term create an infrastructure and cities that are viable and jobs that can be there for generations to come if we do not reverse the trend of reliance on fossil fuels, and if we do not control the presence of global warming gases. Future generations are not going to have in New York City, are not going to have the kind of jobs that our members have if we allow things to continue the way they're going. Specifically in our union, we believe that it starts all at home, and we have begun a program over the years of making a clear, both within the movement and within the industry and elected officials, that one of the areas that are most responsible for the use of energy are our buildings, and that if we are to make a transition so our buildings are actually helpful in conserving energy and helping us to be able to have a more green environment, the workers who are in those buildings need to be able to be trained, need to be able to understand the issues, need to be able to do all the work that is necessary to make our buildings contribute and not be a contributor, right? Contribute to the good economy that we want to have, and not to just be wasting energy and be contributors to a more polluted and energy inefficient economy. So we have been training thus far. We started a program of 1,000 green supers, which have been nationally acclaimed and being resourced partly by the federal government after we set it up. And it was intended to train 1,000 supers in 1,000 buildings. Thus far, we have trained 3,000 supers. We're moving that training program now to incorporate commercial buildings, because most of the supers that have participated work in multi-apartment residential buildings. And the savings that come to the owners, shareholders of those buildings is very significant. The mayor estimated that if the program that is advocated here could be implemented citywide in all of our facilities, it could result as much as $230 million of savings every year. With the industry, after we train our 3,000 supers, we look for a third party to evaluate what kind of energy savings were experienced after the training happened, the retrofitting, all the implementation of the changes at the site, and they found that between a minimal of 5 to as much as 20% on energy costs were saved in just that initial development implementation of the program. So we've seen that this is very, very much so a way to go in our industry. In doing so, our members have not only been really more valuable to the employers and more productive and working in a safer environment too, because issues of environmental concerns are addressed to the program as well, but they also begin to realize and understand the issues that are much more global around the green economy and the challenges of global warming and climate change, because they are beginning then to see how important a transition to a green economy can be and how useful it can be from their perspective. So we see that we need to bring it home when it comes out to working people. We have to start with the jobs, we have to start with the industry, but we cannot leave it there. The next step that we would like to have within SEIU and 32BJ in particular is to really continue the effort of joining other unions in advocating for both mitigation, adaptation, for transition from fossil fuel to renewables, for more aggressive science-based targets that we can promote, defend, and support politically.